Hey, it's David Thomas coming to you from Orchard Hills Church with your morning devotion. I hope you're having an absolutely blessed day so far, and I hope that you get some value from this and this blesses your life as well. So today we're going to continue the series on what is the will of God for my life. So just a short recap. Today's lesson is not going to be too long. I should be able to keep it pretty close to 5 minutes, but so to recap, we talked about the will of God is what? Number one, that you be saved. That is the will of God for your life. This is, everybody's seeking, all Christians seem to seek, what is the will of God for my life? If he would just tell me, I would do it. Well, the Bible does tell us, and that's what we've been diving into. So if you haven't seen any of the past series on what is the will of God for my life, just go back through the recordings. You'll find them. They're all labeled part 1, part 2, part 3. This will be part 4. Now, the will of God we covered was that you be saved, that you live a spirit-filled life, that you be sanctified, right? We went into that. What's that mean? Being pure. Number 4, the will of God for your life is that you be submissive. All right. And what does that mean? Well, he actually tells us what that means in 1 Peter 2. So 1 Peter 2, let's start in verse 13. Okay, I'm going to read it to you right now. It says, submit yourselves to the for the Lord's sake, to every human authority, whether to the emperor as the supreme authority or to the governors who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to commend those who do right. For it is God's will. Right? So it's right there, plain as day. It is God's will that we be submissive. What does this mean? Submit to your government, submit to the authorities that be. Now, this isn't about submitting when they're encroaching upon your right to worship, your right to preach the gospel, your right to spread the word of Jesus, right? This is about not giving society a reason to criticize Christians, right? Society is already going to criticize us. Why? Especially back in this day, because Christians were different, right? They were going against the norm. It was a different story, right? So they were already seen as rebels anyway. His point is, don't give society another reason to criticize us. Don't be the rebels. Don't be the person that's out there starting fights and start causing riots and problems. Find ways to serve people. That is what we're here to do, and be submissive to others as Christians. We're here to serve, right? And, it doesn't matter whether it's the government, whether it's your boss. And you might say, well, you don't know my boss. My boss is a total jerk. Well, he actually does cover this. Let's read a little bit further here in verse 18. He says, slaves or servants, in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. Some translations say perverse. So if you have a bad boss, you're still supposed to submit and do your job according to those to the guidelines that have been laid out before you. You're supposed to show respect. It's not about whether you feel like it's right or wrong for them to treat you that way. You're supposed to be submissive, right? You're supposed to have the godly attitude. And a lot of times that'll show through, and that actually you could be a witness to that person. God could use you to change that person's life because you're the one that's having the right attitude, even in situations where maybe you're not being treated 100% properly. So we need to be the example. We need to live, exemplary, if I can talk. We need to be a good example, put it that way. I can't talk today. So it actually reminds me of a funny story that there was somebody who was driving down the road, right? And the car behind them is beeping at them. And so maybe, they're not going real fast. They're not in a big hurry. They think this person's just upset that they're not going fast enough. And so they come to a red light and they stop. And he hears another beep. And this time he's starting to get pretty irritated. He's like, what is this guy's problem? Right? I mean, I'm at a red light. What's he want me to do? Run the red light? So the guy beeps again. The guy is just so infuriated that he jumps out of the car, rushes over to the guy's window and says, "Guy, what is your problem?" And he said, "Oh, nothing, man. You had a bumper sticker that said, honk if you love Jesus." Right? I mean, that's us as Christians. All of us have done that, where instantly you're convicted. Man, I am not acting like a Christian. It is a perfect example of how you can get caught up in the world, caught up in your day-to-day routine, caught up in your day-to-day life, where that you're not setting the example that you should set. if you're at work, I know it's very easy, as I've been an employee and I've been an employer, and I know that it's very easy to get it over on the boss sometimes, right? And maybe everybody else is doing it, and they're like, man, nah, just go ahead and clock out and let's go. And he'll think that we're still working, or he won't care. It's just a few extra minutes here, a few extra minutes there. That's not right. That's not what Christians should do. We should set the example. And guess what? When you set that example, that's going to be a witness to maybe your coworkers who are getting something over on the boss, who are, stealing some time, who are maybe stealing some inventory or something like that. I mean, I had a story, I used to own a restaurant, and there was a guy there who, was supposedly a Christian, and he was working for me. And we had one evening, and I knew we had a certain amount of fish, right? We have a fish plate left. And I told my kitchen manager when I left, I said, we have about 4 fillets of fish back there. We'll get some more in the morning, but after 4, cut it off. And so he calls me up and he said, hey, we just got our first order of fish, but there's no fish back there. I said, what are you talking about? There was 4 when I left. So he goes back there, he checks, he said, man, they're gone. And so I said, well, just go ahead and tell them we don't have any more. I don't know what happened to them. There were 4 back there. So he finds out later that when the guy who he's working with, which was this Christian guy, who goes to leave, the fish fillet falls out of his backpack as he's walking out the door, just like flat in the middle of the floor. Everybody's looking at it, just a fillet of fish. He had been sticking them in his backpack when he got in there and went into the cooler, right? So, I mean, that's not a very good witness for those non-Christians seeing the Christian guy stealing from the boss. And so you have to set an example as a Christian that whether it's accepted or not, if it's not right, you don't do it, right? You have to live the example. And if you're seeking God's will and you're, say, God, just show me what you want me to do. If you would just tell me, so many times we say, if you would just, if you would just tell me, God, I'd do it. You're hiding it from me. You're making it so hard. If you're not living the Christian life that you should, if you're not the citizen you should be, if you're not the employee you should be, then let's start there, right? We won't worry about the rest until you get your life in order and you start living the Christian life and not giving people a reason to criticize, oh, that guy's supposedly a Christian. That's the worst thing we could do, is hurt the message of Christ by not living up to the Christian standards that we know we should be living on. So let's start there. So that's number 4. We'll be back again with number 5, and we'll close this thing up on what is the will of God for your life, what the scripture says the will of God is for your life. So I hope you got value from this today. And if you did, please like, comment, share this with others. And I hope you have a blessed week. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.